Blake Lively. You are an actress. Unless you signed on as a producer or a director, there's literally no reason why your creative input.
Blake Lively thought she had everything figured out, her career humming along smoothly, her public image polished to a shine. Then Ben Shapiro entered the fray, and what started as a ripple turned into a tidal wave. It all began with a movie called It Ends With Us, a project that should have been a straightforward win for Lively. She was cast as the lead, with Justin Baldoni directing. But almost immediately, things started to unravel, and they unraveled fast. Whispers began circulating that Lively wasn't content to just act. She was trying to seize control of the entire production. Word got out that she was rewriting scenes, stepping far beyond her role as an actress, even though she wasn't listed as a producer. She was just rewriting. A clip surfaced of her talking about manipulating people on set, and it set tongues wagging. People couldn't stop dissecting it. But that was just the opening act. The real chaos kicked off when a lawsuit dropped, and that's when Ben Shapiro decided to weigh in. Shapiro didn't mince words. He took that clip of Lively and tore it apart, calling her out for what he saw as blatant arrogance. He said she was acting like a jerk, plain and simple, not a collaborator, not a team player, but someone who thought she could bulldoze her way through the production. His critique was sharp, unapologetic, and it landed like a punch. For a moment, it seemed like that might be the peak of the drama. But then, things got messier. Much messier. Baldoni's team started leaking evidence. Screenshots, text messages, emails, even voice recordings. One particular line from Lively's text to Baldoni stood out, a casual reference to her husband Ryan Reynolds and pop superstar Taylor Swift. It was cryptic, but it hinted at something bigger, something coordinated. Shapiro had plenty to say about that too, pointing out how it suggested Lively was flexing her A-list connections to intimidate. The plot thickened when a reporter asked Lively how fans should approach her about the serious themes in It Ends With Us, a film centered on domestic abuse and survival. Her response was flippant, dismissive, almost as if she didn't grasp the gravity of the subject matter. It was a moment that hit hard, leaving even her supporters scratching their heads. Shapiro pounced, labeling it tone-deaf and accusing her of turning the press tour into a one-woman show, sidelining the film's deeper message. The backlash was swift, but Lively wasn't done. She filed a formal complaint against Baldoni and his studio, alleging harassment and retaliation. Among her claims was a striking accusation. Someone had walked in on her breastfeeding, a violation she said left her humiliated. The New York Times ran a sprawling piece backing her up, painting her as a victim of a toxic set. But Baldoni wasn't about to let that narrative stand unchallenged. He fired back, with evidence. Shapiro dove into the rebuttal, dismantling Lively's breastfeeding claim with surgical precision. Text revealed she had invited Baldoni into her trailer while she was nursing, a detail that flipped her story on its head. It wasn't the slam-dunk harassment case she'd presented. It was a contradiction that undermined her credibility. And that was just the beginning. Lively's lawsuit also accused Baldoni of fat-shaming her after she'd given birth, a charge that allegedly sent Ryan Reynolds into a rage. According to the complaint, Reynolds confronted Baldoni over it, furious on his wife's behalf. But then the receipts dropped, and the picture shifted again. Baldoni hadn't been cruel. He'd been supportive. Concerned about Lively's back injury post-pregnancy, he'd consulted her trainer rather than asking her directly about her weight. It was a cautious move, not a malicious one, and it made her accusation look flimsy. Then came an unexpected twist from the world of Deadpool vs. Wolverine, Reynolds' latest blockbuster. In the film, there's a character named Nicepool, a soft-spoken, overly polite figure who cloaks himself in faux feminism before meeting a gruesome end. Baldoni claimed that character was a caricature of him, a petty jab from Reynolds. Amid their feud, his lawyer even fired off a letter to Marvel, demanding they preserve all records related to Nicepool's creation. Baldoni argued that Lively's accusations, amplified by Reynolds' influence, had cost him dearly, hundreds of millions, he said. He'd been dropped from a Pac-Man movie he was set to direct, and cut loose by his agency, all because Lively, Reynolds, and their PR machine had allegedly orchestrated a smear campaign to ruin him. They'd even roped Taylor Swift into script meetings, with Reynolds rewriting scenes behind Baldoni's back, despite Baldoni still being the director. Shapiro called it a wild power play, marveling at the audacity of it all. And the public, they were starting to lean toward Baldoni's side. The stakes skyrocketed when Baldoni filed a countersuit against Lively and Reynolds, seeking a staggering $400 million. Shapiro wasn't surprised. He dubbed it Hollywood's latest PR Blake catastrophe. Lively thought she had everything figured out.
Moved beyond
her career
tabloid
humming
fodder
along smoothly
into the realm
her
of
public image
tangible
polished
harm.
to a shine.
Baldoni claimed
Then
the couple's
Ben Shapiro
actions
entered
had
the fray,
torpedoed his
and what
career.
started as a ripple
Lost
turned
films,
into a
tidal
canceled
wave.
brand deals.
It all
derailed
began with a
projects,
movie
all because
called
they'd
It Ends
weaponized
With
their
Us,
fame
a
against
project
him.
that should have
Shapiro
been a
backed this up with
straightforward win
evidence,
for Lively,
arguing
she
it was
was
a textbook
textbook
case
lead,
of
with
Hollywood
Justin
elites
Baldoni
crushing
directing,
a lesser-known
but
name.
almost immediately
He pointed to a
things
Game
started
of
to
Thrones
unravel,
reference,
and
Lively
they
had
unraveled
texted
fast.
Baldoni, a
Whispers
line that
began
implied
circulating
Reynolds
that
and
Lively
Swift were
wasn't
her
content to
dragons,
just act
tools.
She was trying to
of
seize
destruction
control of
she
the
could unleash
entire
at will.
production.
Shapiro
Word got
and
out
Megyn
that she was
Kelly dissected it on air,
framing it not as a playful
role
quip,
as an
but as a
actress,
calculated
even
threat.
though she wasn't listed as a
Preserved in
producer.
writing for all to see.
She was just
Baldoni's team didn't
rewriting.
stop there.
A clip
They launched a
surfaced of her
website
talking about manipulating
where
people on
TV,
set,
full-on
and
digital
it set
war room,
tongues wagging,
where they posted
people
every
couldn't
piece
stop
of evidence they
dissecting it.
had.
But that
Emails,
was just
text,
the opening
voice
act.
notes,
The
timelines.
real chaos
Shapiro
kicked
was
off when a
floored by
lawsuit
the
dropped,
transparency,
and that's
calling
when
it
Ben
a
Shapiro
turning
decided
point.
to weigh in.
This wasn't just drama
Shapiro
anymore.
didn't mince
It
words.
was a reputation
He took that
war,
clip of
and
Lively
Baldoni
and
was
tore it
fighting
apart,
with everything
calling
he
her out
had.
for what he saw as
Lively's
blatant
strategy had been
arrogance.
straightforward.
He said she
Cry harassment,
was acting like a
secure
jerk,
sympathetic
plain and
New York
simple,
Times feature,
not a
and
collaborator,
flip the script.
not a team
But
player.
Shapiro
but someone who
exposed the
thought she could
cracks.
bulldoze
The
her way
Times
through the
piece, he
production.
said,
His
His
critique
critique
was
was
sharp,
texts, omitting
unapologetic,
context
and
that
it
painted
landed
Baldoni
like
in
a
a
harsher
punch.
light than he
For a
deserved.
moment,
It
Baldoni's
seemed like that
team
might be the
countered
peak
with
of the
full
drama,
conversations,
but then
revealing
things got
a
messier,
manipulation
much
that didn't
messier.
hold up under scrutiny.
Baldoni's team
The
started
public
leaking
took
evidence,
notice,
and the
screenshots
tide began to turn.
text messages,
Ryan Reynolds wasn't just
emails,
a bystander
even
in all
voice
this.
recordings.
Behind the
One
scenes,
particular
he was
line
more
from
than
Lively's
Lively's
text
supportive
Baldoni
spouse.
stood out.
He was a
power
casual
broker.
reference to her
Evidence
husband
suggested
Ryan
he
Reynolds
pressured
and pop
Baldoni's
superstar
agency,
Taylor Swift.
WME, to drop
was
him,
cryptic,
and it worked.
but it hinted at
Shapiro
something
called him
bigger,
out for it,
something
accusing him of
coordinated.
wielding his
Shapiro
clout
had
like a
plenty to say
sledgehammer.
about that too.
And then there was
pointing out how
Taylor
it suggested
Swift.
Lively
She wasn't
was
just
flexing
flexing
her
her
A-list
A-list
connections to
sidelines.
intimidate.
She'd
The plot
allegedly been
thickened
present
when
in
a
the same
reporter
apartment
asked
during
Lively
those
how
script
fans should
control
approach her about
meetings.
the serious
Shapiro
themes
didn't
in
dwell
It
on
Ends
her
With
role,
Us,
but
a film
Baldoni's
centered
legal
on
team
domestic
hinted at bigger
abuse and
things.
survival. When
Her
asked
response
if
was
Swift would be
flippant,
deposed,
dismissive,
Baldoni's lawyer
almost
was
as
coy.
if she didn't grasp
Any
the
person
gravity
with
of the
relevant
subject matter
information
it
will
was a
be
moment that
deposed.
hit hard.
If Swift
leaving
gets
even
pulled
her
into
supporters
court,
scratching
this
their
story
heads.
could detonate on a
Shapiro
whole new
pounced,
level.
labeling
Shapiro
it
highlighted a
tone-deaf and
glaring
accusing
double standard.
her of turning the
Lively's
press tour into a
accusations
one-woman
grabbed headlines
show,
instantly,
sidelining the
while
film's
Baldoni's
deeper
side
message.
languished
The
in the
backlash
shadows.
was swift,
Why?
but Lively wasn't
Because a
done.
powerful
She filed a
woman
formal
bullying a
complaint against
lesser-known
Baldoni in his
man doesn't
studio,
fit Hollywood's
alleging
preferred
harassment and
narrative.
retaliation.
Shapiro didn't paint
Among
Baldoni as a
her
saint.
claims was
He
a
acknowledged
striking
flaws,
accusation,
but he
someone
methodically
had walked
showed
in
how
on her
Lively's
Lively's
claims
claims
were crumbling.
a violation
Take
she
the
said
Deadpool
left her
angle
humiliated.
again.
If
The New York
Reynolds
Times
really
ran a
did
space
sprawling
nice
piece
pool
backing
on
Baldoni,
painting
a
her
guy
as a
he's
victim
now
of a
suing,
toxic set.
that's not
But
just
Baldoni
petty,
wasn't
it's
about to let that
sinister.
narrative stand
Shapiro
unchallenged.
roasted it as
He
immature,
fired back
a
with
low
evidence
blow that only
Shapiro
deepened the
dove
shadiness
into
of
the
whole
rebuttal,
affair.
dismantling
He
Lively's
argued this case
breastfeeding
transcended
claim
gossip,
with surgical
touching on
precision.
something darker.
Text revealed
Power
she had invited
imbalances.
Baldoni into her
If
trailer
someone
while she
can
was
lie,
nursing,
ruin
a
a
detail
life,
that
and
flipped her
face no
story on its
consequences
head.
because of
It
their
wasn't
fame,
the slam
that's
dunk
a
harassment
problem.
case she'd presented.
Shapiro even
It was
drew
a
parallel
contradiction
to
that
Hollywood
undermined her
Babylon,
credibility.
a book that
And
peeled
that
back
was
the curtain
just
on
the beginning.
Tinseltown's fake
Lively's
marriages
lawsuit also
and PR
accused
stunts
Baldoni
decades
of fat shaming her after
Now,
she'd
he
given
said,
birth.
Lively's
a charge that
America's
allegedly sent
sweetheart
Ryan
persona
Reynolds
was
into a
fracturing.
rage. The shine
According
was
to the
gone,
complaint,
replaced by
Reynolds
skepticism.
confronted Baldoni
So,
over it,
where does
furious
this
on his
end?
wife's behalf.
Shapiro's prediction.
But then the receipts
court.
dropped,
Baldoni
and the picture
suing for
shifted again.
defamation, harassment,
Baldoni
and
hadn't been
career
cruel.
sabotage.
He'd
Determined to
been
have the
supportive.
truth legally
Concerned
affirmed.
about Lively's
back
not
injuries
just
post-pregnancy,
a lawsuit.
He'd consulted her
She's
trainer
fighting to
rather
salvage her
than
image.
asking her directly
And
about her
Shapiro,
weight.
He's
It was
been
a
there every
cautious
step,
move,
armed
not a
with
malicious
receipts,
one,
laying it
and
all
it made her
bare.
accusation
What's your
look
take?
flimsy.
Is Lively
Then
spinning
came
a
an
web of
unexpected
lies?
twist
Is
from the
Baldoni
world
the real
of
victim
Deadpool
here?
versus Wolverine.
The story's still
Reynolds'
unfolding,
latest
and the
blockbuster.
answers aren't
In the
clear
film,
cut.
film,
but
there's a character
but one
named
thing's
Nice
certain.
Pool.
This
A
is Hollywood
soft-spoken, overly
unmasked,
polite
and
figure
it's
who
not
cloaks
pretty.
himself in faux feminism before meeting a gruesome end. Baldoni claimed that character was a caricature of him, a petty jab from Reynolds. Amid their feud, his lawyer even fired off a letter to Marvel, demanding they preserve all records related to Nicepool's creation. Baldoni argued that Lively's accusations, amplified by Reynolds' influence, had cost him dearly, hundreds of millions, he said. He'd been dropped from a Pac-Man movie he was set to direct and cut loose by his agency, all because Lively, Reynolds, and their PR machine had allegedly orchestrated a smear campaign to ruin him. They'd even roped Taylor Swift into script meetings, with Reynolds rewriting scenes behind Baldoni's back, despite Baldoni still being the director. Shapiro called it a wild power play, marveling at the audacity of it all. And the public, they were starting to lean toward Baldoni's side.